Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will be splitting my time with my neighbour, the MP from the Soup and Salad Bowl of Canada. Canadians elected this Prime Minister because they believed that maybe his experience meant steadiness in uncertain times. They believed that perhaps, finally, someone would treat the nation's finances with care. But this budget is a breach of that trust. This budget is a promise written with red ink and stone, a pledge of debt that my generation and my children's generation will be forced to honor long after this Liberal government is gone. It doubles the deficit of Trudeau years. It exceeds the red ink spilled during the global financial crisis and leaves Canadians with nothing resembling a plan for balanced growth. It is spending without restraint, without strategy, and without an honest accounting of how the debt will ever be serviced. Both capital and operating spending, every dollar of it must be paid for one way or another. It abandons the fiscal anchor that guided us for decades. The debt to GDP ratio that still governs our allies and disciplines responsible nations. And then it dares to call itself generous, offering a tax break with one hand while burdening every Canadian with approximately $2,000 more in debt with the other. Over the next 5 years, our national debt will rise by $324 billion. That is like handing every Canadian family a $20,000 credit card bill and saying, good luck, you will pay for it. In other words, that's $10 million of debt per hour. Every tick of the clock, another $10 million on the nation's credit card. Interest payments alone will climb from $55 billion to $76 billion, more than all of the GST collected in this country. As a finance professional, I am also troubled by another deception. This government is playing with the very definitions of capital and operating budgets, shifting tax breaks and subsidies into the capital column to give the illusion of fiscal prudence. Right on page 283 of the budget, conveniently buried in the annexes right at the back, and only because the government was forced to disclose it, corporate income tax credits are treated as capital investments. So it is confirmed that they hand Canadian tax dollars to big corporations and call it capital investment. Does the UK do it? No. Does Singapore do it? No. Do Canada's provinces do it? No. But does this Liberal government do it? Yes. Yes, they do. And then they tell you that they're going to be balancing the operating budget in 3 years and that they are being fiscally prudent when they are simply moving big subsidies and tax breaks for private companies as capital investments. We also know that even security for FIFA is going to be a capital investment. It is not prudence. It is the manipulation of Canada's budget. It is always risky for an entity to change its accounting metrics, let alone when reporting is delayed, when deficits are ballooning, and when economic conditions are deteriorating. This change that is solely for political expedient communication strategy is damning. It is unnecessary risk to Canada's credit rating and fiscal integrity in very uncertain times. Canadians believe that there was a steady hand on the wheel. This budget has no hand, no wheel, no map. It is impossibly vague. It gestures towards major projects without naming them, military spending without strategy. 7 months after the election, and we still have no idea where this government is leading us. We only know that it plans to spend $141 billion more, choosing the winners and losers instead of fixing fundamentals. It should have unleashed domestic capital to keep investment here and not drive it away. It should have addressed the weight of development charges and broken the bottlenecks in housing construction. Instead, the Building and Land Development Association describes it as, quote, Budget 2025, treatment of development charges particularly troubling. Not only has the federal government's language changed remarkably, backing away from the commitments is now only a framework for federal, territorial, and provincial agreements, not an actionable plan to reduce municipal housing fees with any sense of urgency. It should have treated all Canadians fairly and extended the GST, HST exemption for all home buyers. This Liberal government should have kept their election promise to reduce municipal development charges by 50%. It should have approved LNG pipelines to the East Coast, freeing our allies from the dependence on Russian gas, while building a bridge to renewable energy. It should have cleared the path for the mining of critical minerals in Ontario's Ring of Fire and the infrastructure to get them to market. It should have cut the red tape that strangles our entrepreneurs and lower taxes so they can invest, expand, and hire. Instead, we have an $80 billion deficit, $16 billion higher than even the Prime Minister's own campaign pledge, and no road back to balance. Behind every number, Mr. Speaker, is a human story. Food inflation is hitting hard. Right now, we have approximately 700,000 visits by children to food banks in a single month. That is a generation of children growing up watching their parents struggling because they cannot afford groceries because this government keeps spending beyond its means. Private sector investment is collapsing. Since the Prime Minister took office, quarter after quarter, businesses have lost faith that this government understands how wealth is created. And as confidence leaves, capital leaves with it. 1 in 3 young Canadians are now thinking of leaving this country, not because they lack patriotism, but because they no longer believe that they can afford to stay. That is the tragedy of this budget. To the government opposite, I say this: come to your senses. Return to the discipline that once made Canada a model of stability and sound management. You cannot spend your way to affordability. A government that cannot live within its means will never make life affordable for those that must live within theirs. Canadians do not elect you to max out the country's credit card. I believe in a Canada where fiscal responsibility is not a slogan but a standard, where government acts with prudence and with purpose, where every dollar is spent with the humility that it belongs first to the people who earned it. Hear, hear. And I believe in a Canada where our children inherit opportunity, not debt, where they look to the future and see prosperity, not hopelessness in mountains of debt. Mr. Speaker, that is the Canada we must fight to restore today. Thank you.
Questions and comments. Questions parlementaires. On a député de...
The Honourable Member for Mont-Saint-Bruno-Lacadie. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I listened to my colleague's speech, and I think that people might not have fully understood the budget from her speech. This budget will invest in Canada's defence. We are a G7 country. We need to protect Canada in a changing world. I'd like to know what she thinks about the investments that we're making in Canada's defence.
Member for Newmarket Aurora.
Mr. Speaker, there are some good elements in in this budget. Unfortunately, when it comes to defense, we see a new bureaucracy being created. We see billions of dollars thrown at this program, but there's actually no strategy. There's no details in the budget as to where the money is going to go. And that is the problem, because what we see is bigger programs, more spending, but nothing's getting cut. So that's why we see close to $80 billion in a deficit. They can't possibly be proud of that record.
Good job. Questions and comments. Question and comment.
The Honourable Member for Lac Saint-Jean. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my colleague for her speech on the budget. There's one question that I like to ask the Conservatives, and surprisingly, every time I ask it, I don't get an answer. I'm always surprised, so I'll take a chance with this new colleague. Maybe I'll have a little bit more luck. I asked the same question earlier to the colleague from Richmond, Arthabaska. We're talking about waste from this government. We're talking about generational deficits from this government, and in the budget, we're seeing that tax credits for the oil and gas sector have been extended to 2040. We knew that until the middle of the 2030s, that was going to cost us about $83 billion in tax credits, the oil and gas sector. And with this new extension, it's going to cost over $100 billion to taxpayers. The answer that I got was that it's important to exploit our natural resources, but that's not what I'm talking about. So the question that I have is, do the Conservatives agree with the fact that we're giving $100 billion in tax credits to an industry that clearly doesn't need them? Thank you.
Member for Newmarket Aurora.
I would like to thank the member for his question. We do believe in supporting the oil and gas sector and building pipelines, because that is Canada's competitive advantage. A country either has natural resources or it doesn't. We have been blessed with the fact that we do. And by unleashing our oil and gas sector, it will create jobs, it will create prosperity. That is income for families that desperately need it, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Nanaimo, Ladysmith.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. I asked actually one of the members earlier about service cuts to places like my riding, which is very, very far away from Ottawa and where we really rely on our services. And he answered by saying that the CRA would improve efficiencies by pre-filling applications and tax filings for Canadians. Given the extremely low accuracy of the CRA in answering questions, I believe they're only answering questions right now accurately about 17% of the time. I'm wondering if my colleague would comment on the service cuts to her riding and to Canadians. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Newmarket Aurora.
I thank the member for her question, and it is true we have a problem with the CRA, a problem that has been growing over the last years, and it has been unaddressed, unfortunately, by this government. When we have the Canada Revenue Agency, the agency that collects the revenue for our country, not being able to perform, that is a very serious, particularly when we talk about the fiscal position of our country. We have the agency not being able to provide answers accurately, but also even their artificial intelligence chatbot not being able to provide the correct answers. We saw most recently that there was a fraud with one of the automatic filings where the CRA actually gave a company close to $5 million in a credit, and for a company that only generates $250,000 in revenue. It doesn't make sense. That is a big risk. We have to make sure that we address the structural problems of the agency so that we can finally be efficient.